Devil's Ruin exotic sidearm isn't anywhere close to being a meta pick, but it's always been a fun weapon with a lot of potential. The Season of Arrivals added new Charged with Light mods with great effects, and today we're going to look at a build that utilizes those mods to improve the Devil's Ruin. Let's get started. The Devil's Ruin exotic perk is called Close the Gap. It gives the weapon a variable trigger, press and release to fire individual shots, and holding down the trigger charges up a high-powered laser that staggers unstoppable champions. The laser takes a full second to charge, and when used will automatically refill and consume your entire magazine for 15 ticks of damage. Now, the first thing I want to do with my build is compensate for the Devil's Ruin's weaknesses. If you're using its exotic perk a lot, and you should be, you'll find that it consumes a lot of ammo, so I want sidearm reserves and scavenger perks to help keep the weapon topped off. The Devil's Ruin also has a terrible reload speed, so in my gloves I'm going to slot 2 enhanced sidearm loaders. Increasing the reload speed of any weapon increases its DPS, but with the Devil's Ruin, the increased reload speed means more lasers, and more lasers are more good. I can make my weapon feel even smoother with a reload enhancing exotic. There are a lot of choices across all the classes in the game, but for today I'll be playing as the Warlock, so I can swap between the Ophidian Aspects and the Transversive Steps. The Ophidian Aspects exotic perk, Cobra Totemic, increases your melee range, weapon ready, and reload speed. The reload speed increase is about the same as the increase gained from a single enhanced reload mod. The Transversive Steps exotic perk, Strange Protractor, increases sprint speed and slide distance, and automatically reloads your currently equipped weapon when you're sprinting. Both exotics are powerful, but I've been enjoying the Transversive Steps a lot more because of the cool plays you can make with the sprinting reload. Next, I want my seasonal mods to beef up my weapon's power. Surprise Attack is a sidearm-specific Charged with Light mod that works incredibly well with the gameplay loop of the Devil's Ruin. While Charged with Light, reloading or readying a sidearm will consume all stacks and convert them to a damage buff called Charged Magazine. The buff causes hits with a sidearm to deal increased damage, and the buff persists until all the stacks are consumed or you swap weapons. To become Charged with Light, I have Charge Harvester. Kills and assists have a cumulative chance to charge me with light, and Swift Charge. Rapid kills with pulse rifles, submachine guns, or sidearms will charge me with light. With these two mods locked in, I can charge myself with literally any kill that I perform. Melee, grenade, super, it all works, and if I'm playing with teammates, their kills have a chance to charge me up as well. Finally, I have stacks on stacks to increase the number of stacks I gain from 1 to 2. With all of that stuff locked in, we've got a strong setup on our hands. Surprise Attack combined with Swift Charge essentially gives the Devil's Ruin kill clip, and with Scavenger and Reserve perks, I can use the weapon a lot without worrying about running out of ammo. Charge Harvester lets us use any kinetic or heavy weapon and abilities to charge ourselves with light, so my loadout isn't restricted, but I'll also be charged constantly, so whenever I need to swap to the Devil's Ruin, I'll get the damage bonus from Surprise Attack. Finally, our exotic armor is going to provide us with some quality of life, making us sprint faster, but also allowing us to reload while we change positions. Now, with all of that said, it's time for us to get into the field for some testing. Alright, before we head out into the field and start testing out our build, we're going to look a little bit more closely at some of the mods that I have equipped and the different weapons that I have equipped as well. For my primary, I am using the Whispering Slab. This was a new bow that was added in the Season of Arrivals. I've got Demolitionist and Hipfire Grip. This is not the role that I want, but it's the role that I have, and it's pretty good. Demolitionist reduces the cooldown of my grenade every time I get a kill with it, and I use it a decent amount, especially if there are encounters where the range of the Devil's Ruin is going to be problematic. Because it is a sidearm, it does have extremely limited range, even when you charge up the laser. We've also got the Temptations Hook with a fantastic roll. I like it a lot. We've got Vorpal Weapon, and I've also got a major spec in it, so this thing shreds through champions very effectively because of this combination, and it's also a little bit more ammo efficient when we're using our light attacks because of Relentless Strikes. Landing 3 light attack hits in a short time grants sword ammo. For the rest of the mods in the armor, I went over pretty much everything in the start of the video, but on my helmet, instead of having primary ammo finder or sidearm ammo finder, we have sword ammo finder. The primary ammo drop rates in the game are high enough that I'm not really going to ever be starved for ammo, but the way the Devil's Ruin works, there are going to be instances where my ammo starts to run low, but primary ammo bricks drop often enough that I'll never be in a situation where I'm like, hey, I could use a brick right now and I'm not going to get it. But with heavy ammo, it's a little bit different. One last thing that's important to note, even though I do want to have a way to scavenge additional ammo for my primary weapon, specifically the Devil's Ruin, I also want to make sure that I can keep my heavy weapon topped off, because the Devil's Ruin is very strong, but it's not a god killer in the same way your heavy weapon can be a god killer, especially swords. They do a great job at shredding through grounded enemies, and the Temptation's Hook can do a decent job at aerial enemies as well because of its ranged attack, but I want to make sure that I have a means to top it off when the ammo does run low. So get that ammo scavenger in there for your heavy weapon, but because the Devil's Ruin is a little bit thirsty for ammo, make sure that you have a means to scavenge primary ammo as well. Alright, we're diving into the Arms Dealer Nightfall Strike in the classic Nightfall playlist, so we're not going to have to deal with any champions, but it is a pretty challenging environment. Now, the first thing that I want to show off is the ability for the Devil's Ruin to be a way to burst down targets. So I'm going to stay at range for a little bit until I become charged with light, which I am right now. And at this point, when I swap over to the Devil's Ruin, we're going to have some pretty impressive burst damage. And because I'm using the transversive steps, I don't actually need to reload. I can reload just by sprinting and repositioning. And then if I swap back over to the bow and then switch back to the Devil's Ruin, you'll see that charged magazine comes back into play. And we got a lot of enemies over there. That is a frickin' firing squad. And we're getting bounced up by these scions. A lot of rough stuff is happening right now, but Devour is allowing me to maneuver around the battlefield pretty effectively. Got a great bit of burst damage on that guy because of the charged magazine. Just going to eat this grenade here because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get a kill in the right time. So utilizing the transversive steps to reload again. Oh. That's something I forget about sometimes. The transversive steps do not reload guns while they're stowed, and I often have a problem forgetting to reload my stowed weapons. But we cleared out that first area pretty well. Got some good usage out of the charged with light mechanic on surprise attack. So the next thing that we're going to see is we're coming up into contact with another mini boss enemy, and we're going to see the burst potential that exists with the Devil's Ruin once we get to him. And the mini boss is right up there. He's going to jump down, and when he does, come down. There you go. Switch over to the Devil's Ruin, and I missed a decent amount of the precision hits on him, but you saw that he still took a pretty hefty amount of damage there from the burst from the laser, and that was courtesy of the charged magazine, as well as the laser just being a pretty strong burst of damage, especially for a primary weapon. I'm just going to pretend that I didn't die here because that was kind of annoying. But this next bit is probably the most difficult part of the Nightfall because of the big tank that's in the room. And also there are some Fallen in here. So that's going to make things a bit more difficult for me as well. But this is a good opportunity to showcase the weakest bit of the Devil's Ruin, and that's going to be the limited range that the weapon has. We're going to really have to play aggressively if we want to use the laser to its maximum effectiveness. But we are seeing the burst damage that we can deal when we have the charged magazine. It's impressive against the tank. And we are charged with light right now, but I'm gonna put the Devil's Ruin away because we're gonna have to fight from range to deal with these shanks. And that's okay. There are also gonna be some Cabal that spawn behind me. So then we take out the Devil, and we have that charged magazine. Oh, that's bad. Oh boy. Things are not looking good for me right now, but that's okay. I was waiting on my Devour to come back, and now that I've got it, I can start being aggressive again. Just going to use the sprint from the transversive steps to reposition and reload simultaneously. It's a very effective thing to make use of. And while I am charged with light, I'm going to switch over to the bow, and I'm going to switch back to the Devil's Ruin as soon as I'm in position. Not bad, not bad at all. I'm enjoying this quite a bit. I want to say that this is not the strongest build that I've ever created, but it's a really satisfying one to use. It feels very effective, and that's all I can really hope for, is that if it's something that feels like it's working and it's getting the job done, doing what I want it to do, then I think I've succeeded. And something really cool that you can do with the transversive steps is you can reload the Devil's Ruin without triggering the charged magazine. So I've effectively stored it and saved it for an opportunity when I really want to use it, which is when we come up against Rakazan. I'm going to take out my sword here and try and get a few hits on him with the lightning effect that we create there. And we'll get a Nova Bomb on him as well. And I'll use a little bit of the charged magazine to burst him down. It's not the greatest DPS, but it does burst down enemies pretty well. And there we go. That's going to do it for the build for today. The Devil's Ruin feels absolutely fantastic when you spec your character around it, and I'm genuinely surprised because I wasn't the biggest fan of the weapon, though I've always been able to acknowledge that it is a really cool concept. But now it's something that I'm going to take into a lot of different content. It feels awesome to play with this setup. With all of that said, we're going to wrap things up here, but don't worry, there's plenty more coming in the future, so stay tuned. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel more than you already do just by watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. As always, the name of the game is Destiny 2. The name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.